you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This is another of our popular Listener's Choice interviews, which we're playing over the weekend. We've chosen the most popular interviews for you to select the Listener's Choice winner. If you're not sure how the Listener's Choice competition works, have a look at horsechats.com/choice for the rules and the leaderboard. Today's chat's been brought to you by International Horse College. We have a mission to improve the welfare of horses throughout the world through the safe education of riders, handlers and trainers, and that's what these chats are all about. Registered Training Organisation 31352. Today's guest is Jason Hill. Jason's been a guest before and he's come along from Equestrian Fit. So if you haven't talked to Jason before or you haven't heard about Equestrian Fit, go to episode number 175 and have a listen to that because it's very interesting, just about using exercise physiology and about Equestrian Fit as well. So he's a certified personal trainer, but go and have a look at episode 175 if you haven't heard Jason's chat before and come back to this one. Now, Jason, how are you today?
Oh, very well. Thanks, Glenys.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good to talk to you, Jason. Now, today we're going to talk about 10 rider fitness principles. So you're sort of bringing in your exercise physiology background, but why those in particular? You're finding that riders just don't know enough about fitness principles. We're so into getting the horse fit, but what about getting ourselves fit?
Yeah, these principles probably predominantly what I work with every day with riders.
Yep.
And I've outlined some of the key points under each of the fitness principles and how they could be targeted.
Okay, now, if someone's got a problem, should they consult their physician first if there's a particular old injury or something like that? What would you recommend there?
Absolutely. Yes, take care with the getting the health bill and visit your doctor and just check that all exercises is right for you at the stage and level of your fitness, and then you can crack into it.
Good. Now, the first point you've got is mobility comes first. So, what would you like to say about that?
So, with the training and with riders, I assess their muscle balance, mobility, stability, their coordination, and the alignments, and get some feedback from the riders what they're working with on the horse and what they feel they need to target to improve their position. And so mobility I put number one because having elasticity in the body to be able to gain full range of motion on joints and to have a release in the body. And so if you're training with already tight muscles, you've got a good chance of tightening those muscles even more, and then that's when injury can occur. So you want to avoid injury because that'll slow down your fitness gains. And mobility has a direct relationship with stability because the more range of motion you have on a joint, the more feedback to the brain about its potential movement, and that strengthens the signals from the brain to the joints so that you can have better control on the horse.
That sort of brings us through to point number 3, doesn't it? The coordination and the control.
That's right. And we just need adequate range of motion. We don't need to be be Cirque du Soleil flexibility.
Yep, yep.
It's just adequate for our sport or chosen interest.
Mm-hmm.
And that coordination is really key there, because coordination comes from the timing between what's called the intrinsic muscles and the external muscles. The intrinsic muscles are the smaller muscles in the body that sit closer to the joints, and they give a lot of feedback to the brain about movement, but they also communicate with the larger muscle groups that actually create the movement. So it's that intrinsic muscles and the external muscles that sit on top of them that communication is required. So having that mobility just gives more information back to both of those muscle systems.
Okay. And you've got the muscle balance. So we've got equal length of muscles at the front and the back of the body and side to side, because riding should be, we worry about our horses being straight so much, but to have your own body straight, it's got to be important if you're looking at having a horse that's going to be straight.
That's right, because essentially the horses are an extension of ourselves, and we are an extension of the horse, and so our imbalances transfer to the horse and equally back the other way. So
Yep.
it's important for us to be able to reference what an even sit bones are, even pressure in the stirrups, and know that whereas we're holding to our midline. And probably more than any other sport, symmetry and balance is very important for riders to be able to ride evenly on both reins, but also at any discipline, especially when you're jumping, when those jumps get bigger and the forces on the body are more dynamic, the body knows what its stronger or stable side is, so it will typically go to that stronger side. So you can imagine if you're right-handed and your body's going to naturally go to that right side, and so it's essentially the rebalancing process is just strengthening up the weaker side. And it's quite a simple formula, really. It's just doing double sets on your weaker side and knowing what those areas of the body that you need to target is. You can find out with muscle testing or doing some simple standing on one leg test. You'll recognize what side of the body is stronger and what's weaker, and you just do extra sets on that weaker side.
And I suppose that's related to the postural alignment, isn't it? Having it so that you talk about standing on one leg, but just that whole postural alignment.
Yep. Yeah, well, our posture is dependent on how we move and the quality of the movement. So it's difficult to have alignment without good mobility and stability first. So your structure is built with balanced movement. So a lot of us, large populations, spend long periods of time sitting in chairs and sedentary roles. So the hip flexors typically get very tight and the glutes become weaker. What tends to happen in the body is that a dominant muscle tend to become more dominant and a weaker muscle becomes weaker. So the glutes or the butt tends to become weaker and weaker. So we need to combat that in our exercise routines and get lots of glute exercises and lengthen out the quads. And those glutes are what gives us stability on the horse, especially the glute med, which sits on the side of the hip or the side of the butt. They're lateral stabilizers and assist us with the application of aids. So that the right balance of muscles around that pelvic area, and that's combination of lower abdominals, glutes, the hip flexors, the quads, assist us to sit neutrally with the pelvis, just on top of the sit bones. And that will help us to gain a neutral position with the upper back also. That's the thoracic region. And there is an important relationship between the upper back and the abdominals. So if we've got good mobility in that upper back region and we're able to extend, which just means open the chest and gain that sense of height through the upper body, it facilitates good core function. So that alignment ties into good core function, sitting neutrally with symmetry on the horse.
And I think that's your next point, isn't it, about the core control and the gain of stability and control throughout all the muscle groups.
Yes, and the core, we may have a strong core in the gym, but it needs to work dynamically on the horse, and we can replicate some of those movements in the gym. It's important to do types of exercises that are challenging our core and are playing an integrated role. So full body movement, resistance band training is very effective for that. Because we're having to stabilize against the external resistance of the resistance band and all the movements. And if we're working upper and lower body together, then that's integrated movement, and the core is having to work dynamically as it does on the horse, because we need full chains of muscle to coordinate and to fire together. So it's like the body's communication network that's happening with, and the core is central to that. And it all ties into that core, and with of course with building strength and tonicity in the core is going to help. And then the brain knows when the body is stable, and it knows when to safely output power and innovate the extremities, like the extremities being the legs and the arms, so that we can work with independent limb control.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. Now, proprioception, the feedback to your brain from your peripheral senses. What can you say about that, and why do we need it? Why do we need it within horses, within training, and what's the relationship there to our rider fitness?
Sure. The we have proprioceptors all layered all through the body, and that gives us feedback about movement and where we are and in space, and when we're on the horse also. We have a lot of feedback through the hands and the feet, actually, and that those channels of communication need to be flowing. So we're getting and with the other principles in place, good mobility, stability, muscle balance, the alignment, the core control, then our proprioception improves, and we can improve our stability, which is essentially what proprioception is, stability. And we can improve that by doing variability training so that the body's getting more information about movement. So variability training is essentially doing less reps and more different sets. In that, instead of doing multiple sets of one exercise, you're just doing one set, and then you're doing a different exercise. And then the body is receiving more information about movement. And what actually happens is that the brain says, right, I know more about movement. I feel safer to protect the body, and it de-stresses the brain. So this has a hormonal response in the body, which releases all the feel-good hormones, and then suddenly your muscles and your fascia system can all work effectively, and your confidence rises, and your relaxation as a fallout as a part of that also.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, your response rate, because thinking about horses, and we generally start off with an easier, quieter, less big moving horse, so our responses don't need to be as quick, but then the more we ride, the higher we jump, the faster we go, the more complicated the movements that come up quicker and quicker, and generally the type of horse that we ride might change, to a quicker moving, more responsive horse. What can you say about, how this helps, how our fitness, how we need to be fit to be able to cope with the responsiveness of the types of horses that a more advanced rider would ride?
Sure. Yeah, the responses, of course, really important for safety first, and
yes.
And our ability to be able to have good timing
mm-hmm.
and coordination of the aids. And responses is improved by concentrated effort on a movement or a task. And because what they've discovered is with concentrated effort is that the neural pathways that innervate those muscles, get a myelin wrapping. Myelin is it's like a coating that covers the neural pathways. When we do a certain exercise or a certain movement on the horse, for example, like a canter aid, and getting the coordination and timing of that, with that concentrated effort, you have a myelin wrapping. And what happens once you have that myelin wrapping, it speeds up the response up to 200 times for that particular pathway to have that muscle respond faster, but also with the better timing.
Mm-hmm.
So when we are doing our exercises, if we can involve more stability and coordination and we are having to involve concentrated effort, that will improve our response ultimately when we are on the horse, and then we can and that's how we can progress through the grades with the combination of all those principles and and having that response as a part of every exercise routine.
If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, horsechats.com. And then what about the relaxation? Because we can't, like it's all right saying we've got quick responses, but if we ride all day thinking we've just got to have quick responses, we're not going to be, we're not going to enjoy it much. The relaxation. How fit do we have to be able to relax properly on a horse so that then the horse can relax?
That's right. And it's so important to have relaxation so that the movement of the horse stays fluid and you can capture that movement and be able to allow to happen. And if we're tense, we all know that it thwarts and blocks movement. And relaxation comes through all your systems working with balance and coordination. So it is a combination of those factors. When the body knows that it is stable, that it's and it has lots of information about the movement of the horse and its own potential movement, then that naturally has a response with the body at that hormonal level to help you relax. And that's really the key factors there is having all the other components in place. And it's all very well to say I need to relax, but if the body's not feeling stable, it does know that.
Yes.
And it won't output the power, and in some cases people will just freeze if they're in a situation where their stability is compromised, and that's not ideal on a horse because we need to be able to make a decision and fast.
Yep. Now, thinking about, again, taking it back to riders' fitness and fitness principles. And I'm thinking, I've ridden in a few 3-day events. So, riding the cross country, there's a lot of variation of movement. You're out, you're sort of standing, walking, and then you're cantering, and then you're jumping, and then you might be doing a vertical, you might be doing a spread fence, you might be jumping up a bank, down a drop, through water. There's a lot of different techniques that we need to use and a lot of different movements. And that's after we've done the dressage, where we might be doing, a canter half pass and then a change and then a canter half pass the other way and putting in some more complicated movements and then on to the tighter show jumping. So I know we need to be fit there, but how does all this come, with the variation of movement? And how does it coordinate together?
Yeah, similar to the variability of thing. And it's if our aim, we're wanting to be as still on the horse as we can and not interfere, so that the horse can balance itself. And if we can be more independent of their movement and be able to support ourselves, then the horse can perform to its full potential. But that's the dichotomy, is because in order to gain stillness, we actually need to move first. So
Yes.
we actually need to be feeling stable with good relaxation, all the other principles in place. And as we know, if we're moving too much, we unbalance the horse, and it make his job harder. So in order to gain that stillness, we need to move first and give the body, as we do when we're out cross-country schooling, like you say, or all those combinations of jumps. We practice those so that we're getting the download of the movement to the body, and so it knows what to do, and we're increasing that myelin wrapping around the pathways so that our body has the right response at the right time. And doing 2-point work, getting up in the stirrups, great for building the core stability, great for strengthening the glutes, and then so doing on the horse, riding up and down hill, and variability and variation of training there is all going to feed in to your dressage seat, and then and aid you to gain stillness and precision of movement with those perceivably invisible aids. In the gym also, like we were talking before, is having that variation in all your training, with and attempting to replicate some of those movements that we have on the horse in the gym. So, for example, a really effective exercise for riders, for jump riders especially, is squat rows with a cable. So you have a handle with a cable attached in each hand, and you're squatting, hinging the hips back into a squat, taking the arms forward. So that cable's actually an external resistance. So it's pulling you forward, if you like, and so your whole back chain of muscles having to fire to keep you upright. And then as you come up to standing, you're activating all the glutes, and you're drawing those handles in towards the stomach, and you're firing up again, all squeezing between the shoulder blades, and that's essentially your landing position. So the hinge back into the squat is somewhat like the movement when you're over the fence, coming up to standing. It's like your landing position. It's working the same muscle groups and having you're replicating a similar movement in that regard. It's not always possible to replicate that, but we wanting to give the body as much information about movement as we possibly can. So that's yeah.
Okay. And I think, Jason, you've been doing this for a long time. You know, you're already a qualified personal trainer. And I know you're a rider because you're a stunt double for, tell us about being a stunt double again. I was pretty impressed that you were a stunt double for, was it Lord of the Rings?
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
and, So I was stunt double for Viggo Mortensen, who played Aragorn in Lord of the Rings. And so there was some pretty precarious moments there, and it was a great experience. That was some time ago now.
Yeah.
But and I've had I had a passion for riding and also fitness for most of my life, and so really I started on this journey about 10 years ago, and really to wanting to understand myself what it was exactly that riders needed for their as a core fitness, and so I built a functional training system for equestrians, and I work with this every day with riders at home, and it's there's two pieces of equipment. One's a reactive platform that riders stand on, and while they have movement underneath and absorbing forces, they have to keep coordinated movements and tasks. And then there's another piece of equipment where they're actually seated in a saddle, and that's also a reactive platform mounted on a system of springs and pulleys. Mm-hmm. And then they do a whole workout on that so that their core is working dynamically as it needs to in the saddle.
Yep.
And then, of course, I have another product called StrapX, which is a home training system that riders train on. It straps around the back of a door and or a wall, and they have over 100 exercises targeting the muscle groups that riders need to strengthen to improve their position on the horse. So that's where I've come in the last 10 years, and it's been quite a journey, and it's like all riders know, you never stop learning. Every day there's something new that you learn with.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I like that you said that, ultimately you're looking for stillness, and in order to gain stillness, we need to know how to move. And I think the ultimate compliment for someone is to say, you just sit there and the horse does all the work, and you think, yep, then you've almost achieved what you wanted to achieve, so that it looks like you're just sitting there and the horse is just doing all the work.
That's right.
Yeah. Jason, for people who are interested in finding out a bit more, because the whole equestrian rider fitness, it's a big, big area, and I think you're very well qualified to talk about it. How can they contact you, Jason? Oh, actually, I should say they can contact you at horsechats.com/Jason Hill, and now horsechats.com/Jason Hill too. But if they wanted to contact you direct, Jason, what's the best way?
I have a studio based in Auckland, and that's Equestrafit.
Yes.
And you can find my contact details on the Equestrafit website, or contact me by email. It's jason@equestrafit.co.nz.
Perfect. And if you did miss those, have a look on horsechats.com/Jason Hill. Jason, thank you. Thank you again for coming, for letting us know all about your background in fitness and why it's so important to you, and why you're so well qualified to do this equestrian rider fitness program. So thanks for all your information. Thanks for describing it. And it's coming from not just a personal trainer, but a personal trainer who's also a horse person. I think the combination of the two is essential for anyone that's serious about their rider fitness. Thank you, Jason. Well, hopefully we'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Thanks, Glenys.
If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.